Good evening everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about book lore and why it is important if you're gonna create multiple books in the same line of what you're writing. So if you're writing in the same world and you're writing in a fashion that has history to it, then you're gonna probably create some lore. So for those of you who do not know what lore is, basically what it is a detailed history of a bloodline, of a race, of of the world that you're creating. It can have stories on its own, it can have a lot of different things. The reason why this is important is basically because when it comes to races, it is good to know where they came from. It is good to know what that people went through. It's good to know what they might go through in the future. It can have a bit of foreshadowing. It can have impact on the storylines of characters that you create. And so it is very important if you're gonna try, or if you are writing a long series or something that is so good that might actually be adapted into a TV show or might adapt it into a video game, you're gonna want that lore. It'll just give it a lot more depth, but also it'll give the writers for any TV show or for a video game more to work with. And so it's really important if you want to write multiple books to do something like that, if you wanted to have that kind of future. Again, this is not a requirement. This is not something you have to do. This is just something that I personally like to do. But also, you know, in the future you might be able to create more storylines or plot holes or things like that that are connected to that have absolutely no way of being there if you didn't have that lore. But again, you don't have to do this. I mean, most people just write a story or write a book and they're done. But often those books are not as well reviewed as the ones that are really in depth and really created well. So yeah, I'm gonna give you a bit of an example. So right now, I'm playing World of Warcraft. I'm a World of Warcraft player. There is speculation in the upcoming expansion that we will be getting a new zone called Northuron. Sorry, I'm having some issues speaking that. Northuron. Yeah, that's one. And we, as World of Warcraft players, have heard of this before, but that was a very, very long time ago, and I believe it was comics at that point. It hasn't existed in World of Warcraft itself yet, at least that I know of. It has in Warcraft, which is a different game, but not in World of Warcraft. And so that's a really cool thing, that they're going back to the past. They're looking at the comics and they're like, that's a zone that we can now implement like 25-ish years later. No, not 25, 20-ish years later. They're now gonna implement that, which is really cool. There are so many things that are just really important. Another good example is the trolls. Like, I know that most of you are not interested in World of Warcraft, and this is just an example. But another example are the trolls. Like, you don't really know where they are coming from, what they're doing at certain places until later on, like multiple expansions later, when you learn that they came from Zandalar. And these are all kind of things that you can use in your own stories to create something now that you might not use for another 5 books. But at book number 6, you're like, now it's time. It's time to implement this into the story. This piece of work that I've created, this piece of history, is now something that I can create into something new, into a place that hasn't really happened yet until now, or was lost to time. Again, another place that I can really tell you about it. Another great example is Atlantis, right? We don't know much about Atlantis or whatever. It's not something I have dived too deep in, but I've watched the show, what was it called? Stargate Atlantis, where in the future they find it in a different place. It's a very long story, but again, that's a great example. Like, you can write something like Atlantis, and later on, seasons later or books later, you can bring Atlantis back, like it's been found, like it's been worked on, like it was never lost but hidden, or things like that, like a secret organization or whatever, or civilization has completely shielded it, or let your fantasy go wild. Things like that, just hidden cities, lost cities, knowing that they're mentioned in the history you've already wrote, but then books later you actually reach that point and you're like, or the readers will be like, hey, I've heard about this before. It's in the history here. And they already know something about that city because you already wrote about it. So let's say things like, it's a shadow city that is surrounded with light, but the light cannot penetrate a shield of darkness. Again, I'm just making this up as I go. But things like that. And they now manage to get inside it. They don't know how to get out. Things like that. So, but because of the history, they now know, like, what could possibly help them and how they could possibly get out. It's things like that. You have to be very creative for this. But it is possible, it's workable, it's usable, and I just think it's really cool. And again, if you're one of those people like I am and you're using a lot of different monsters or characters or different races into your stories, you're gonna want to make something of a bestiary. A bestiary is, well, how do I explain that? It's basically a book that gives you the information of a creature. Let me give you an example. Let's say vampire, right? If you put vampire into your bestiary, you can write down what it does. You can write down, like, they feed by drinking blood, they spread a disease, or however you want to call it, called vampirism. If you call it a disease, I mean, I don't want to offend anybody out there. I know that people can be really, really hurt about that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna piss anybody off. But it's things like that. And vampires can be different in your book than they are in other people's books, Sorry, I'm getting a runny nose. But basically, yeah, in your book, vampires could be a malformed creature that's starving, that has zombie-like appearance. While in other books, like the Vampire Diaries, they're like humans, they have full consciousness, things like that. You can make them animalistic, you can make them human, however you want it to be. It's your book, it's your fantasy, it's however you want to be, however you want your story to be. But that counts for a lot of things. I like creating my own creatures. The problem is, it can be very hard to do without drawing inspiration from other creatures, which can make them look too much like those creatures, which will make them uninteresting. It's a process. It's a very long process. Either way, I think I'm gonna leave it at this video because it's, yeah. I just hope this helped, and yeah. Either way, I hope that yeah, you find use in this. I know I personally do. And I would suggest you look up some lore. I know that a lot of you don't like World of Warcraft. I know that a lot of you don't interest in video games. But if you really want to get the feel of what I'm saying with lore, because it's so much, it's basically unexplainable. The best thing you can do is look up some World of Warcraft lore on a specific thing. Like, for instance, the Blood Elves. And I'm saying this because they have some very interesting lore. There are things that are looked down upon by their own race. There are things that they absolutely love. There are things that they hate. You know, just look up those kind of things. Draw some inspiration from that. Learn from it. See how they wrote their lore on this specific kind of race. It's gonna help you be a better writer. If you don't want to look up World of Warcraft lore, you can look up the Witcher lore, which is also pretty good. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you have a good night. Have a good night, have a good morning, have a good day, and have a good evening. And I will see you all tomorrow. And yeah, I love you no matter what. Have a good night.